Great. Okay. So hi, Deborah and Mark. How are you guys doing today?
Really good.
Very good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
How about you, Felice?
Good. I'm really excited about actually doing this interview with you both because we've been wanting to do this for a while, and I think it's going to be really interesting for coaching students to really hear about what Gestalt is and how you frame this in your own experience in your own career. So I'm going to just jump right in here and just ask, and why don't we start with Mark? Maybe you could start, or Deborah, you guys decide who's going to start here. And so I just wanted to know what attracted you each originally to Gestalt, because I know each of you probably were attracted in different ways. So I'd love to know that.
So I have a long history of interest in Gestalt, but a particular moment in time when I took a course in graduate school, and the instructor at the time had a bag of all kinds of things, and she dumped them into the middle of the room, and she asked all of us to go around and pick something that we really resonated with. So we all moved around the space, looked at these items, and we each picked. And then when we sat back down, she asked us to go around and tell us what stood out about this particular object that was important to us and what it made us feel. And right in that moment, it was like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense on so many levels, right? So we each went around, we explored what that meant for us and what we were experiencing, and we realized we're in this group all experiencing a variety of different things, and we're all different. It was just one of those very powerful moments that I knew there was something here that was really important for me to pay attention to in my work and in my life.
Great. Was it a Gestalt class?
It was a Gestalt class, Gestalt therapy class.
So that was your first experience of it. That's great. That's great. Deborah, what about you?
Yeah.
What was your experience?
So, and so Mark is having this experience as he's getting his social work degree many years ago. And Mark's coming back all activated and excited about Gestalt.
Right.
And of course, right, Gestalt is a theory that's really a living philosophy and a philosophy for living, as Mark likes to say. And it sort of just like caught me. Because the principles and the values of theory are they just resonated with me in terms of who I am as a human and my upbringing. So I caught the bug from Mark.
Oh, okay. So that gets into my next question, which is also kind of there are major theories and main concepts in Gestalt that I know, like after the experience that you all really learned and became expert in. And I'm just wondering, what are your favorite ones? Like, what are your favorite theories and concepts from Gestalt that you really, really kind of just love to think about and talk about and teach about?
So there's so much to that. And for me, when I first started learning Gestalt, I became really interested in awareness and what that actually meant. Like, what is awareness? What does it mean? What do you do with it? Then what do you do with it? And so the construct in my head and how I teach it is that Gestalt is about heightening awareness. And once you have that heightened awareness, you have agency, you have choice. And then you got to do something about it. Doing nothing is also choosing to do something about it. And, action on it. And so just that like tiny little snippet has really kind of guided me along the way.
I've seen that in working with you. I just wanted to ask Deborah one more thing, because I've seen it working with you, that's something that I see from you all the time when we've taught together. What would be an example that we could give students of like what it's like when your awareness is raised or heightened, or, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, it's great. You know, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about myself. I have my own coach that who I kind of like work with on a weekly basis. And we were talking about like a place that I'm kind of stuck at in terms of, you know, like thinking about slowing down, stuff like that. And through a series of questions, she helped raise my awareness of what was actually going on for me. And in that moment, after figuring that out, she asked me questions around like what I wanted to do about it.
Hmm.
And so there was like the heightened awareness, and then it was like, okay, well, now you've got this.
Right.
Now what? Now what do you want to do?
Right.
And ironically, I decided just to sit with it because it was just too much to deal with
Mhm.
in that moment. And I just said, hey, good awareness. My choice is just to kind of like hang out with it and feel it for a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah. So it's so much, what a
And not
great
to move into
example.
action.
Yeah, what a great example of like coaching, and how coaching can just bring awareness by asking some good questions, you know? So, and Mark, I know you're jumping in here, so I want to definitely get what are your favorite
Mark.
concepts? He probably has like 100 of them, but I want to hear the top ones, Mark. I've learned so
I
many.
do, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do have many, but here's the top two. One is I and thou, here and now.
Ooh,
That
tell
we
us
are
more.
here in an experience together. And how does our experience together help to raise the level of awareness? Or as coaches, how do we use ourselves in helping our clients to raise their level of awareness? So I and thou, here and that, here and now, right? You and me, right here, right now. We're in the world together. And then the second one is Laura Pearls had this statement of Gestalt is experiential, experimental, and existential.
Wow.
And how I think about that is that everything we do moment to moment is experimental, whether we're doing that with intent or without intent. So we don't know, like I always think about it at my age, how will I get up from the chair and what will that feel like? So even that's an experiment. So when we think about our work experimentally, it's how do we help clients also experiment in new ways that might be just out of their comfort zone, but just enough for them to have a different experience and see life differently. So giving an example would be this past week, we worked with a client who was presenting to the board of their organization for the first time. He asked us for 2 sessions during the course of the week to help him shape himself up for that presentation. And he had just moved to a new organization. He worked in 2 organizations previously that are really huge. And the expectations as a high performer and coming to those meetings as a high performer were significant. And now he's in a smaller organization, and he still holds these expectations about how he's supposed to show up. And in his anxiousness, he noticed he was really losing himself. And he said to us, how can I just be myself and come to that experience and show them who I am?
Oh, yeah.
So we practiced some relaxation strategies, how to manage some of the critical stuff that was going his head. And he sent us a text after that meeting saying he had just gotten over 100 responses about his presentation and how wonderful it was and how people got to experience him as him.
Wow.
Um, So when we think about existential, the existential part is when I'm anxious and I'm not in myself, I'm not myself. I lose myself. And what is it? What are the experiences I can create or experiments I can create to help me be more of myself?
Yeah.
And that piece of work was an example of those, the 3 E's.
Yeah, I'm thinking the way I'm connecting this is that there's both the kind of the awareness in different, like, say, theoretical frameworks, right? So it's just awareness or the 3 E's, which is its own framework. And then there's kind of like, what are you going to do about it? Which is that experiment part, which, Deborah had said, she could sit with it for a while. That's the way in this situation, the way you want to deal with it. And how he really didn't have a chance to sit with it. He had to go and act. But it worked out really well for him. So I see a kind of a pattern there for that. That's great. So I have another question, which is, and really the last one is, how do you use Gestalt in coaching? So we've got most of the people that are listening to this are either training to be coaches or they're executive coaches already. What are the parts of this? How do you kind of integrate this into your coaching process? The Gestalt, I don't know if you want to say it's not just a model, even though we call it a model, it's more of a underlying framework, I think, for all of coaching. My experience of Gestalt was like, this informs the way coaching has grown over the years. In other words, like what we have right now is coaching grew very much from Fritz Perls and the work that was done by various people in the Gestalt community and turned into this thing we call coaching. And but I just kind of like so it's almost like this kind of quiet whisper underneath a lot of coaching. But I'm wondering if you could articulate what that might be or what it really looks like for people that are really expert in this.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that in addition to the Gestalt piece, what makes us unique is that we are a coaching pair.
Yeah.
And so add in the interpersonal dynamics that happen normally between a coach and a client. Now add in 2 coaches and a client.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, and for Mark also, we both pay a lot of attention to the system that we create as a coach client system, as well as the context of the system in which the coachee operates and works in. Mostly we do leadership development coaching. And so it shows up in having that systems lens, and really looking at implications and things like that. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, another part would be like the somatic aspects of the work, really paying attention to when someone tells us something, how are they telling us that? What do we notice? What do we notice in the way that they appear as they're presenting it? When we're in person and we can see a whole body, we can watch how a body is moving and think about those things, or watching how a person might be seeming to hold themselves back. What are we experiencing when we're noticing the client or the things that they're saying? And how much of that is about me, or how much of that might be me perceiving the client? And then how I use that and organize that material to present and say, wow, I noticed when you were doing such and such, I was experiencing this. Did you have any of that type of experience? Right. So using myself like as a conduit with those clients in terms of whatever the emotional material may be underlying the work, resistance that may manifest, or elation, the things that they get excited about.
Right.
And noticing those things and noticing them in patterns as we work with them.
So yeah, so I see this as like kind of the 2-person system, like you're talking about. And I really like the kind of, so when you're most people are in a 2-person system in coaching, right? The coach and the client. And you guys have like this other system, right, with 2 people and a coach. Although I've done that recently too, where I'm actually coaching 2 clients to work with each other. And I'm
Yeah,
the
that's
coach, right? So that's a system. And then
yes.
and I loved that kind of thing. And then they're working within a system. So what do they learn about themselves? What does the coach bring from a self as instrument point, which is I think what you were saying,
Yes.
to that universe of systems, you know, which I also think is kind of one of the big features of Gestalt. So last thing, is, so we've got people that are, most of the people listening to this are going to be taking the coaching class, but some may not. They might just be coaches interested in coaching. And if you were going to say to somebody, like, to point them to one thing to look at, or a resource to go to, or something to look up on the internet or something, you know, what would you kind of point someone to?
There are 2 particular things.
Yeah.
The paradoxical theory of change by Beiser, and they could find that on the internet easily.
Paradoxical theory of change. Okay.
Paradoxical theory of change. Probably it's a short paper, but probably one of the most influential and powerful papers in Gestalt around the use of paradox. And the essence of that is something around, like, I'm trying to be something other than I am, rather than trying to be myself. Right? That would be the paradox, right? So, like, and really looking at where that demand comes from within us or outside of us and stuff like that. And the other book I'd strongly recommend, even though it's oriented toward therapy, is Creative Process and Gestalt Therapy by Zinker, who was also one of my mentors. Brilliant book. Those are
Great.
resources.
Yeah, I'd happen to agree with you. You know, I love anything written by Edwin Nevis. I just, you know, just adore his writing and adored him as a man, you know, so that would be my go-to.
So it gives people a few things to look to on their own before they kind of jump into this. But definitely that are powerful. So, all right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you soon.
You got it. Big hugs.
Big hugs.
Hugs.
Gestalt
Okay.
is hugs.
Hugs. We're all about hugs, right? Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.